You are hanging suspended in a thin aluminum bubble, 3,000 feet above the green canopy of the Central Highlands. The deafening whine of the turbine engine vibrates straight through your teeth. Below you, the jungle looks peaceful, but you know that a single well-aimed bullet can turn your machine into a falling fireball. This is your office in 1968. You are 19 years old, and you are piloting a Bell UH-1 Iroquois helicopter. Everyone calls it the Huey. It is the machine that defined the Vietnam War. How did this single helicopter transform the way modern wars are fought? To understand, you have to live a day in the flight boots of the men who flew them. Your day begins at 5 in the morning. The air at your base camp in Pleiku is still cool, but the humidity is already rising. You wake up in a wooden barrack covered in green canvas. The smell of JP4 jet fuel is everywhere. It hangs in the air, sticks to your clothes, and flavors your morning coffee. You walk to the mess hall for a quick breakfast of powdered eggs and greasy bacon. Your mind is already on the pre-flight briefing. At the briefing shack, the air is thick with cigarette smoke. The intelligence officer points to a grease-penciled map of the sector. Today, your company is scheduled for a combat assault. You will be inserting infantrymen from the 4th Infantry Division into a clearing near the Cambodian border. The area is suspected of hosting North Vietnamese army troops. The officer warns you that the LZ, or landing zone, is expected to be warm, if not hot. A hot LZ means the enemy is actively shooting at anyone who tries to land. Will you make it back to this briefing room by sunset? You walk out to the flight line where the Hueys are parked. Your ship is a UH-1H model, powered by a single Lycoming turbine engine. You begin your pre-flight inspection. You check the rotor blades for cracks and look for hydraulic fluid leaks. You check the tail rotor, the small blade at the back that prevents the helicopter from spinning out of control. Your crew chief and door gunners are already busy. They are cleaning the M60 machine guns and loading belts of ammunition. The M60 is a heavy machine gun that fires 750 rounds per minute. It is your only defense against ground fire. You climb into the armored pilot seat. The seat is lined with ceramic plates, designed to stop a rifle bullet from hitting your spine. You buckle your 5-point harness and pull on your heavy flight helmet. The helmet muffles the ambient noise, but fills your ears with the static of the radio. In his famous memoir, Chicken Hawk, pilot Robert Mason described the constant vibration and the feeling that your teeth would rattle out of your head. You run through the checklist with your co-pilot. You flip the starter switch. The turbine begins to whine, a sound that starts as a low whistle and rises to a screaming pitch. The 2 large rotor blades begin to turn, slowly at first, then faster, until they blur into a flat disc above your head. The airframe shakes violently as the rotors reach operating speed. This vibration is something you will feel in your bones for the rest of your life. You pull up on the collective control lever. The collective changes the pitch of all the rotor blades simultaneously, increasing lift. The helicopter becomes light on its skids. You push the cyclic stick, which controls the direction of the rotor tilt, slightly forward. The nose dips, and the Huey slides forward into the air, climbing away from the red dirt of the runway. You fly in a tight formation with 9 other Hueys. This is a slick formation. Slicks are troop carriers, stripped of heavy armor and weapons to carry as many infantrymen as possible. As you fly toward the staging area, the landscape changes. The flat coastal plains give way to rugged mountains covered in triple canopy jungle. The trees are over 100 feet tall, forming a solid green roof over the forest floor. There are no roads here. There are no safe places to land. If your engine fails now, you will drop straight into the trees. You monitor the engine gauges constantly. The turbine temperature must remain within safe limits. A drop in oil pressure means you have only minutes before the engine seizes. You arrive at the pickup zone, a secure Firebase on a hilltop. Here, the infantrymen are waiting. They are young, draft-enrolled American boys, their faces covered in sweat and dirt. They carry heavy rucksacks, rifles, and water canteens. They look exhausted before the day has even begun. They scramble into your cabin, squeezing together on the metal floor. Your Huey is rated to carry a crew of 4 and up to 10 passengers, but today you are carrying 11. The extra weight makes the helicopter sluggish. You lift off from the Firebase and head toward the landing zone. The flight takes 15 minutes. The radio in your helmet is a chaotic mix of voices. You hear the gunship pilots coordinating their rocket strikes. Gunships are heavily armed Hueys, equipped with rocket pods and miniguns. They fly alongside the slicks to clear the landing zone of enemy troops. You hear the forward air controller flying in a small Cessna, directing airstrikes by jet fighters. The sky around the LZ is filled with smoke and fire. You begin your descent. You reduce the collective and drop the nose. The Huey descends rapidly, dropping out of the sky at a steep angle. This is a tactical approach, designed to minimize the time you spend in the enemy's sights. The jungle rushes up to meet you. You can see the small clearing in the trees. It is barely large enough for 3 helicopters to land at the same time. The tall elephant grass is whipped into a frenzy by the rotor wash. "We receive fire," your left door gunner screams over the intercom. The sound of AK-47 fire punches through the noise of the engine. It is a distinct, sharp cracking sound. You feel a jolt as a round punctures the thin aluminum floor beneath your feet. Your door gunners open fire with their M60s, the empty brass shells raining down onto the cabin floor. The smoke from the guns fills the cabin, stinging your eyes. You hold the controls steady, fighting the turbulence and the panic. You hover just inches above the ground. The infantrymen do not wait for you to land. They jump from the skids into the tall grass, diving for cover. You watch them scatter into the tree line. One soldier falls, hit by enemy fire, and is dragged behind a tree by his comrade. You want to stay and help, but your job is to get the helicopter out of the trap. You pull the collective with all your strength. The Huey struggles to climb. The air is hot and humid, which reduces the lift generated by the rotors. This is the phenomenon of density altitude, where hot air acts like thin mountain air. The helicopter is at its absolute limit. You dip the nose to gain forward airspeed, skimming just feet above the treetops. The branches scrape against the skids. Another burst of machine gun fire passes through the tail boom, but the controls still respond. You climb back into the safety of the sky. You fly back to the Firebase, but your day is far from over. The radio crackles with a call for a Dustoff. Dustoff is the call sign for medical evacuation flights. A squad of the infantrymen you just inserted has walked into an enemy bunker complex. They have 3 critically wounded soldiers who need immediate evacuation. The LZ is still hot, but the medics say the men will die if they do not get to a hospital within the hour. Will you volunteer to go back down? You do not hesitate. You think of Major Bruce Crandall, who flew his unarmed Huey into the teeth of enemy fire at Landing Zone X-Ray during the Battle of Ia Drang in 1965. He and Captain Ed Freeman made dozens of flights to deliver ammunition and rescue wounded soldiers. You turn your helicopter back toward the smoking clearing. This time, you do not have the support of a full gunship company. You must rely on speed and surprise. You drop into the clearing once more, the door gunners firing continuously to keep the enemy's heads down. The medics rush out of the jungle, carrying the wounded men on stretchers. They slide them onto the blood-slicked floor of your cabin. One of the wounded soldiers is screaming in pain, while another is completely silent, his eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. You pull the collective and lift off. The cabin is filled with the smell of blood, sweat, and gunpowder. Your co-pilot works the radio, alerting the field hospital at Ann K of your arrival. You recall the words of Major Charles Kelly, the father of Dustoff evacuations, who died in his helicopter trying to rescue wounded soldiers. His motto was simple: "When I have your wounded, I will not turn back." You fly at maximum speed, pushing the engine to its limits. Every minute you save is a minute that determines whether these young men live or die. According to historical records, the Dustoff flights of the Vietnam War reduced the average evacuation time to less than an hour. This speed saved thousands of lives. You land on the helipad of the evacuation hospital. Medics rush out to carry the wounded away. You sit in your seat, your hands shaking on the controls. The adrenaline is finally fading, leaving you exhausted. You look down at the cabin floor. It is covered in red pools of blood and spent brass casings. Your crew chief takes a bucket of soapy water and a broom to wash the blood out of the helicopter. This is a chore he will perform multiple times today. By the end of the day, you have flown 8 hours of combat missions. You have inserted troops, evacuated the wounded, and carried ammunition to isolated fire bases. You have survived 3 separate ambushes. Your helicopter has 6 new bullet holes in the fuselage, but the vital components are undamaged. You fly back to your base camp as the sun sets over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. You park the Huey on the flight line. You shut down the engine, and the silence is deafening. You climb out of the cockpit, your back aching from the hours in the armored seat. You walk to the debriefing room to report the day's events. The intelligence officer notes the coordinates of the enemy fire. You then walk to the maintenance hangar to help the mechanics patch the bullet holes. The helicopter must be ready to fly again by morning. In the evening, you sit with your crew on sandbagged bunkers, drinking warm beer. You talk about the missions, the close calls, and the friends you have lost. You try not to think about tomorrow. You know that the average lifespan of a Huey pilot in a hot zone can be measured in weeks. Out of 12,000 helicopters that served in the Vietnam War, over 5,000 were lost. Over 2,200 pilots and crew members were killed. It was a staggering loss rate that showed the true cost of airmobile warfare. The Huey was the symbol of American military might, a flying testament to technological supremacy. Yet, it was ultimately vulnerable to the low-tech tactics of an enemy who knew the ground. Simple rifle fire, hidden machine guns, and rocket-propelled grenades brought down billions of dollars of high-tech machinery. The lesson was clear. Technology alone could not win a war against a determined adversary on their own turf. As you look at the modern sky, you can still feel what it was like to hang suspended in a thin aluminum bubble 3,000 feet above the green canopy.